case. I do a bunch of projects over at nichepursuits.com, and I manage the portfolio of websites we have over there. And I also did most of the content organizing and writing and editing and posting and tech stuff behind Longtail University. And I'll be sharing some thoughts with you today.
Awesome. And Jake, why don't you go ahead and give us your brief intro as well so people know who is on the call.
Sure, thank you. This is Jake Kane, and I'm the third person of the group here, and I work with the Longtail Pro business. So I manage the content over at longtailpro.com, writing for the blog, and pretty much just heading up our marketing efforts there for our software business. And anyway, excited to be on the call today. And as I've done on the other two webinars, I'm just going to say it, coming to you live from Cincinnati, Ohio, which I feel like is just one of the finest places to live in the world. I really do. So chime in if you're on the chat. Let us know where you're calling in from. And we've had a pretty good, Spencer, I think you'd agree, we've had a pretty good wide variety of locations on our first two webinars. So hopefully we have a group like that today.
We've got people from not only all over the U.S., but people from all over the world. So it's pretty interesting. People are sometimes staying up late at night, early in the morning, wherever they are to join us. So we appreciate that. We've got a few people chiming in saying where they're from. We appreciate that. We've got Anne from Atlanta, yay, and Lisa from Toronto, Canada. Sheila from Portland, Oregon, not too far from where I'm at. I'm over in Washington State. Deb from Boston, and Rob from Orange County, California, Leonard from New Orleans, and people from other places as well. So we appreciate everybody joining in. We'll go ahead and get rocking and rolling. We'll see if anybody from Cincinnati, Ohio joins Jake, but you know,
Okay.
he's quite proud of where he is. So I think we're all proud of where we're at. But anyways, so today the topic is how to take great keywords and turn them into engaging content. And before I jump right into it, can I just get a yes from everybody that can see my screen and hear me? You should be able to see the presentation. And okay, yep, people can hear me and see my screen. So just want to make sure we're all squared away before we jump right into it. Now, this really is an important topic to talk about because we've gone through all the lessons in Longtail University. We've gone through the live webinars talking about how to find these great keywords. And I really do think that if you use the strategies we've talked about, you're going to be ahead of the game. But what do you do with your keywords once you have them? It's not as simple as just putting the keywords on your page and then you rank in Google. You do need to create engaging content and use those keywords wisely. And so today we're going to talk about different types of content that you can use your keywords for. And so there's 5 primary types of content that we want to talk about. First are the best and review type articles, and we're going to go over each of these in depth. The second type is info or AdSense type articles, and the third is listicles, and again we'll define what each of these are and how you can use them as well. Social and viral type articles, and then finally linkable assets. These are of course assets that can generate lots of links, but all of these should be using keywords. You should start with the keyword research that we spent so much time previously, and then you need to decide which of these 5 types of content do I want to create. At least generally speaking, these 5 types of content is what you're going to want to use. These should always be keyword focused. Okay, so before we dive into the types of content, how do you handle content titles? Okay, so this is a question that I get a lot of times. People think, well, you have your keyword, you should just use the exact match keyword in your title and that's it. But as I'm showing here on the screen, it really should be more than just the keyword. So if your example keyword or the keyword that you found is best pocket knife, that shouldn't be the title of your article, that all by itself. It shouldn't just be best pocket knife. Okay, You need to use the keyword in your title, but you should have surrounding words and phrases that make sense and make it more interesting to human readers. So here's just a few good examples that use the keyword best pocket knife, or that the targeted keyword of the article is best pocket knife. So first, the best pocket knife for the serious outdoorsman. So you see that I've used additional words and phrases to make it more interesting, more clickable to people that might be searching on Google, and to potentially include longer tail keywords there also. The second example is, what's the best pocket knife on the market today? So again, this could be a question that somebody's asking. Maybe people are actually typing in what's the best pocket knife, but that may not matter. Just using the additional words and phrases to make it more interesting to a human viewer is very important. And then the final example I have here is just the top 10 best pocket knives to buy right now. So as you can see, that's a little bit more catchy than if you were to just have an article called best pocket knife.
Can I pop in here, Spencer?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, so I think there's more of a business case to be built here too, because when we're thinking about doing keyword research, one of our goals is to attract more traffic, and having a really great title can do a couple things for you. So first, it can just get more people to click through to your website, so it can increase the amount of traffic you get per position in the SERPs. So even if you're still ranking at number 3, a title like the best pocket knife for the serious outdoorsman is going to get you more traffic than that same title that's also ranking, or I'm sorry, the same article that's also ranking at number 3 that's just titled the best pocket knife. So you're going to get more traffic for your effort, but also we know that Google uses click-through rates in the SERPs as one of their ranking metrics. So if somebody is clicking your title more than the other titles, it can actually move you up in the SERPs. So it's a really good reason to spend some effort and to make really good titles.
Yes, absolutely. I totally agree with what you said there. There is a good business case to be made. And so just some final thoughts about content titles. It's just very important to be descriptive. Don't be so sort of regimented in saying, I must only use this keyword and I'm doing this for Google, I'm doing this for a machine. Well, you're not. You're doing it for humans. So you need to be descriptive. The general principle here is that you should use the keyword, but not just the keyword. You need to make your title interesting and more clickable, as I mentioned. And then just a quick pro tip here, something that you can do to help you create great titles is to look at related ads and perhaps steal their copy to make it a little bit easier for you to come up with a great title. So you can certainly look at ideas of people that are already ranking in Google, or people that have Google ads, or other places where your keyword is used. You can find some great ideas to create great titles. So having said that, we are now going to jump into the first type of article. And somebody is asking if this is being recorded. Yes, it is. So the recordings, as usual, will be available in the members area of Longtail University. So a best review type article, we've talked about this quite a bit, and even in the example that I just gave there, the best pocket knife. So these are articles that are targeting the phrases such as best pocket knife, best survival knife, best CB radio reviews. So these are usually product focused keywords that they don't necessarily have to have the word best and review, but it sort of categorizes reviewing products. This is often used when you're selling your own products or you're selling Amazon affiliate products. These are typically your money articles, if you will, that are going to be very in-depth. So my recommendation is that you make them 1,500 to 3,000 words in length, so that they are very in-depth. And before I go into the examples, actually, I do want to mention the word length. Just in general, for all the types of articles we talk about, longer articles often tend to rank better. Moz.com actually came out with their 2015 ranking factors for Google. They do this survey once a year to say what the top ranking factors are, and they found that there is definitely a very strong correlation between article length and ranking highly in Google. So the results on the first page of Google tended to be, I believe it was 2,500 words or longer, whereas the second through 10th page of Google were much, much shorter articles. So there is a correlation between article length and ranking in Google. So that's something to keep in mind. So now as we go through these, I am going to click on live examples and we're going to pull these up. So this is an example, a good example of a best type of article. So this is targeting the keyword best CB radio. It's called choosing the best CB radio. This is from my friend over at e-commerce fuel, Andrew Udarian. He actually owns the website rightchannelradios.com. And so just a couple of things that I wanted to point out. Of course, the great title, but you'll notice as I go through here, there's also a lot of great images and subtitles. And I don't want to spend too much time on each of these. I could spend a ton of time, but I will just scroll through here and show you that this is a great example. It's a very long and in-depth article. It's got videos here. It's got all of these sort of semantic keywords, as it uses, what's so great about these CB radios. It's got squelch control, RF gain, PA capability, automatic noise, limited, weather capabilities, and on and on. So it's a very in-depth article. It's going to capture lots of long tail keyword phrases, but it all sort of summarizes what is the best CB radio. So this is one really great example of creating a best type of article. So this is something that you can dive into a little bit more on your own time. In fact, if you typed in best CB radio, this is one of the top results on Google. So we'll do that here. It's in fact, it is the #1 result. So you could search for that and find it and review it a little bit more in depth on your own.
Spencer, could I chime in real quick on that?
Yes.
I just wanted to point out something that you saw in that article. Spencer was pointing out the subheadings. This is also a great way to put in some of those secondary keywords. So one of our earlier webinars, we talked about using modifiers. And so there are some things in, besides just best CB radio that people are searching for. Like I think you had a subheader about like best long range CB radio, best full size, best value. There may be something for best CB radio under X amount of dollars. And so that's a thing, like when you're looking at lengthening these articles and getting them to be really thorough, it's a really good opportunity to use your H2 tags, like your subheaders, to do some other keywords that fit here. Maybe they get searched less often, but you can sort of cluster them in to where you have this one big full guide to CB radios, and inside of that you've got all these little sort of subcategories that you're doing. So it's a great way to beef up the article, and you absolutely can rank well. I'm sure that if you looked at this, like he probably ranks for a bunch of different similar terms like that. So you can certainly rank one huge authoritative piece of content for a bunch of different keywords like that by using your subheaders wisely.
Absolutely great point, and I was just highlighting some of the subheaders as you talked there, so hopefully people were able to see exactly what you were talking about, because I agree 100% that using those subheadings, you can also rank for lots of additional keywords, and so we'll see how this turns out. But one of his subheadings was best long range CB, so if I type that in, I was just wondering if he's ranking for that. He actually is here. He's the third result down on Google that he's ranking for that particular keyword as well. So let's go ahead and do one more example here. So let's say we were wanting to rank for the keyword pocket knife reviews. That was our keyword, and of course this is the review type article that I was mentioning. And so one result that I pulled up here is over at outdoorgearlab.com. And as I pull that up, I'll re-emphasize a couple of things here that they're doing very well. Of course, they've got the keyword in the title, the best pocket knife review. They actually have a video review, which can be very helpful. And they've also got a nice chart here with, it looks like the top 8 pocket knives in all that has lots of different things that they compare. And so this takes a lot of time. Outdoor Gear Lab does this a lot. They go into very much depth, creating useful content for people to compare and contrast different products so they can make a good buying decision. But as you can see, they do the same thing as far as using lots of subheadings. They use lots of images. You know, here blade integrity, sharpness is one of their subheadings. Construction quality, portability. But overall, as you look at this, this is a very in-depth article. I'm scrolling down to show you how many words this is. This is easily going to be over 3,000 words. They even give the history of pocket knives and a whole lot more. So this is a very in-depth, not just long article. There's, you know, you can certainly use a lot of words, but they do more than that. They have a lot of related images, related videos, and then of course that great comparison chart is going to help them stand out and do very well. So if we type in their targeted phrase, so pocket knife reviews, we can see that they rank #1 on Google for that particular phrase as well. So these are great examples for how you can, you know, not only find great keywords, but then turn that into great content that Google loves. You know, hopefully we're showing you examples of sites that Google really does like. I'm getting a question here from Leonard. He's just saying, is the chart a plugin? On this particular site, I don't believe that this is a plugin. Outdoor Gear Lab is actually quite a large site, and so I think this is custom to their site. There are other chart plugins that you can use. I don't know if I can remember any right off the top of my head, but there are at least WordPress plugins that you can use. That's right. TablePress is the one that I've used quite a bit to create charts on my own site. That's a free plugin. There are other paid options out there as well to create different charts.
Yep.
So that's a couple of examples for creating best and review articles. Next, we're going to talk about info and AdSense articles, and I'm actually going to turn this over to Perrin and let him dive into this.
Yeah, so when I first started building sites, I was building them only with best and review type articles, just basically finding all the best blank keywords I could find in a market and reviewing all the products I possibly could. And that's awesome, and it does make some good money, but there are a couple problems with that. The first one is that if you are only talking about products, you open yourself up to thin content penalties, which I got. And you know, I didn't think my site had thin content at the time, but looking back on it, you know, I had 50-word introductions, and everything else was about these products that you can find on Amazon or whatever. You know, I was just basically rewriting the reviews. And I'm doing things different with my review articles nowadays, but it still is important to realize that if you're only writing review articles and you're only writing about products, your site is missing something. And anybody who comes to your site who is looking for other information that's not product related is going to feel a kind of vacuum there. So one way to fill them out is with information-based articles that are designed to make money more with display ads, and AdSense is an easy example, but there are lots of people using other types of display ads too, or like, you know, AdSense type articles. So what do they look like? Usually these are smaller articles, and if you go to any major news site, you can see that this is pretty much 90% of their content. These are articles that are targeting really long tail keywords. They're 500 to 700 words long, although they could be much longer. But the strategy here is to find a whole bunch of really long tail keywords and to fill your site out with hundreds of articles that provide real information to real people who are interested in this particular market. So you might have an article about best pocket knives, but then you also might have articles about camping or about knife sharpening or about the best way to take care of a pocket knife or about carrying a pocket knife, how many pocket knives do you need? So like all of these types of things. And there are a couple different reasons you might do this. The first one we already talked about is to kind of fill your site out and protect you from thin content penalties. The second one is that it's a really cheap, really fast way to scale your site. So for example, I'm working on a site right now. I had a core of best or review type articles, and I wanted to start growing the site in a more natural, authoritative way, or scale it, right, because it was making a little bit of money. So my next step was to add these info type articles, these short AdSense based articles, and I think I added 30 or 40 of them in a month. And you can do that because they're super cheap and they're super easy. I mean, to get a good writer to write 700 words for you of well-researched information is like $12 or $15 at the most. So they're really cheap. You don't have to do tables. You don't have to fact check product specifications. You don't have to add a ton of images, although you should add some images. You might add a video or whatever. But they're much easier to just have written and get on your site. So they're a really, really good way to scale. One of the biggest reasons also is that you can, by doing these types of articles, you can answer real questions that people have, and that's how you really build authority in any market. If you're only regurgitating information that people can go find on Amazon for themselves, you do not have an authority site. You don't have a site that people are going to bookmark. You don't have a site where people are going to give you their email address. You're not presenting yourself as an expert in the niche. So it gives you an opportunity to build some trust, really help people who have real questions, and basically establish yourself as a real authority. And the last reason is some queries just don't need 2,000 words. So for example, a query that I've seen a lot when I was researching different sites that I was going to build in, like, January, were keywords like can cats eat grapes? I don't know if cats can eat grapes or if they can't, but I do know that that's not a 2,000 word article. It's a 500 word article at the most. Yes or no, why or why not? 5 to 7 paragraphs. If you tried to write 2,000 words on can cats eat grapes, it would just never work because it would be all fluff and your reader would understand that, and they would never read the whole thing because they had already gotten their answer. So some queries just don't need 2,000 words. And if you're asking yourself, like I did, if you can actually rank with a short article, because we know that article length is one of the ranking factors, the answer is yes, if it's one of those questions that doesn't need lots of content. And there are surprisingly lots of them out there, So like, how much does a pocket knife cost? Could you write 3,000 words on it? Yeah. Are all the top results writing 3,000 words on it? No, because it just doesn't take that many words. So let's look at some examples, I think. Oh yeah, so the reasons these can be tricky to find. A lot of the times, finding keywords for these information types of articles is tricky to find because they don't use the types of modifiers that you're probably used to if you're doing keyword research like we are, which is, best and reviews or for sale. How to actually will yield some good results, but not as many. And to really use these effectively, you need lots of them. We're talking like 100 or more. So the way I like to do it is to steal keywords from forums or competitors or other weak sites. And if you don't know how to do that, you can check our previous webinar number 2. One of the ways that I really like to do it, which I'm stealing from Chris Lee, and he has some really good information on this specifically, is to find a really good video about something in your market that has lots of views, which means that it's clearly something people are searching for, no matter what your keyword research tool says. and then just have a writer create an article that outlines the instructions of that video. So the example here is you might have a baseball site and you're promoting baseball bats. One information article might be how to throw a curveball. Instead of, you know, thinking about it and researching it and writing an article, you could go find a video, give it to a writer, and say, take these instructions and make them into a nice article. And then you could embed the video on your site to, you know, provide an extra resource. So that's just a really easy way to do it. It's a very easy way to get started without doing lots of intensive keyword research, because honestly, these can be tricky to find if you're looking for like 100 at a time, but that's a pretty good way to do it. So let's look at some examples. So this one is cost how much. The first one is cost how much. How much does a post stamp cost? So if we're looking at this article, it's fairly short. Scroll down a little bit, maybe. Fairly short, probably not even 500 words. Basically gives the answer and pretty much nothing else. And that's another good thing about these types of articles. These are typically queries for which people are looking for a quick answer. And recent research has shown that Google is tracking whether or not people find an answer on your site by seeing what they search for next or what they click on next. So by giving the answer up front, you can help yourself rank well, and that kind of makes up for the length. But this is a really good example. How much does a post stamp cost for 2015? And it just tells you. You don't need 2,000 words. This other one, can dogs cry tears, is a keyword I'm actually targeting on one of my sites. And this is one of the articles that is currently ranking for it. And it's very, very short. It gives you a really quick answer, has some other information, but it's not even 500 words, probably like 350 words. And this particular site is owned by a company called Demand Media, and they have a few different sites and a few different verticals. So they have this site, they have a golf site, and they have some other site in addition to the big ones that they own, like crack.com and Livestrong. But for their niche sites, it's almost 100% this type of article. They find the questions people are asking and they just answer them quickly. I think we have a couple more examples, right? Yeah, how to play catch. Baseball zone, and this is probably a pretty good example of someone who took a YouTube video and made an article out of it, or wrote an article answering a relatively easy question and then provided a video resource. So this is probably a slightly longer article. This is about the length that I like to do, around 700 words, but super easy. So the idea is much more of a volume approach with these. You obviously want your articles to be quality, but you don't need huge tables. You don't need to do like really intensive research. You don't need to pay $50 or $75 to have a really good writer write the information. You can go on a slightly lower quality, make sure they have good editing, make sure they just answer the question correctly, and then move on. And I personally am having some success with this. So I have a few keywords that I'm ranking on the first page for, and there are also people like Chris Lee, who's one of my favorite bloggers right now, who is making tons of money this way. So it's a really good method to fill your site out, go after some really long tail keywords, and scale after you have a core of good product articles.
Yeah, absolutely. Good information there. One of the interesting things, or I guess to just drive home the difference between the product focus, the best review type articles, and the info and AdSense type articles is just that very often these informational articles are going to be targeting keywords that have a very low CPC. Perhaps they're less commercial. It's not something that, like how to play catch, you can't really sell anything per se, or can dogs cry tears? There's not a product associated with that. So there's going to be very low cost per click type keywords. So these really aren't going to be your money articles per se, but as Perrin mentioned, they can really fill out your site and can be a great way to target really low competition keywords. So just because
Yeah,
you won't be making very much per click, there's a ton more informational type keywords than there are going to be product type keywords anyways.
for sure. And I think it's worth mentioning that you're probably more likely to capture somebody's email on one of these articles because you're answering a question they really want to know instead of promoting a product. Also, um, Google's ad payouts are becoming standardized because they're getting better at tracking who you are and what you like.
Hmm.
So the CPC of a particular keyword is mattering less because Google's showing people ads for stuff that they're interested in anyway. So.
Right, and sort of case in point, I'm on this can dogs cry tears, and Google knows that I am interested in perhaps hiring creative writers.
Yeah.
Nothing to do with dogs, of course. So that's sort of case in point right there. They track you. There's a lot of remarketing done on Google, so the CPC may be higher than what the keyword says that it is in the Google Keyword Planner. So. Um, no, very good. Oh, I'm getting a question. What is Chris Lee's website? Somebody's asking there. Why don't you go ahead, parent, so I don't get it wrong.
Yeah, it's rankxl.com. He's a good one to follow. He does stuff very differently from us. He has a total AdSense model, but he's really cool. He's a really good link builder, and his last income report was, I think, $20,000 a month from almost one site, and he's using this strategy. So he's kicking a lot of butt. Really cool, really smart guy.
Yep, absolutely. So you guys can check that out. Now, we're actually going to have Jake jump in here and talk about listicles and walk through a few examples as well.
Sure, thanks. Hey everybody. So talking about listicles, and as the name would suggest, it's basically just a mix of a long list and an article to go with it. And so works really, really well for a variety of reasons, and we're going to look at a couple of examples in a moment. But you can make really great titles with those. They're very clickable, interesting, and they can also be SEO friendly as well. And so you think about your space. In general, people love lists. You see them no matter what your interests are. If you're on Facebook or whatever, you see people sharing lists all the time of the top tips for this or favorite that. So for instance, if you were a cooking and a food blog, you might have something like, my top 10 kitchen essentials that I couldn't live without. And putting that into like a listicle format goes beyond just, putting a list of just 10 things and calling it a day. But typically you would start out with an introduction where you're kind of introducing the topic like you would an article. And then you go into the list, and usually you're going to provide more information on each item or each category of an item. So if I were doing that example that I mentioned, I might say, I really love this food processor, and then I talk about all the things that I do with it. You may have saw our other article where we gave you this recipe. I couldn't have done it without this item, and you talk about that and the value it has as you go down the article. And so again, it applies to virtually any niche, so anybody can use these, which is really cool. You can kind of get creative and make some really good listicles for your site. So the other thing with that, a benefit, as it mentions here, is that the on-page metrics are often really high for these. So things like time on page and people clicking through to the stuff that you're talking about are great signals for Google to show the quality of the page and how long people are staying and all of that. So lists, people tend to look at them, save them for later, and spend a lot of time there. So those are all really, really good things. And the best of all is they're not all that tough to create. Usually you can crank these out relatively quickly as well. And you can do, we're going to look at one example of a really long list and then one of a much shorter list of just 5 things. So really you can sort of customize it to what you feel like fits. So go ahead and click on that first one there, Spencer. And this one is on Niche Pursuits, which is a site you may have heard of, one that Spencer does, and it's 53 ways to make money from your website. So as you can see here, Spencer introduces the topic, talking about different websites, how they make money, and then goes into how you can monetize a niche site. And as you scroll down, he's kind of got it categorized into different ways, and so it talks about like pay-per-click contextual ad networks like Google AdSense and some of the different options that Perrin mentioned just a moment ago. Gives you a list with a link to each one of those. And as you go down the list, he's got different advertising networks, different affiliate networks, on and on and on. And most of them have just a short introduction, so cost per action networks, and he just gives you a paragraph to explain what that is, and then he gives you, 8 to 10 ideas with a link of where you can go find them. And so if applicable, he might have a little comment there about, one that we use, or just give you a little bit more information on it if it makes sense. But all in all, you just put together this large list, and it's really valuable, and you're just curating a bunch of things that are going to help people make more from their site, which really plays nicely with the theme of niche pursuits, because that's what it's all about. And then you can see on the left, people were sharing it socially, had a lot, 54 comments on this, so just a lot of interaction with the audience that liked it. Another thing just to point out here, when you do listicles like this, is it's also an opportunity. I think Perrin's going to talk in a moment about linkable assets, but this kind of becomes a linkable asset as well. In other words, something that you can get others to link to pretty easily. As I mentioned, folks love sharing lists. So what I would suggest, and what I've done before, is if you do a list and you include other blogs or other resources or whatever, just send them a quick email, let them know about it once you've published your list. So in Spencer's case, he mentioned some of these, obviously, like Google, and Google AdSense isn't going to care, but maybe some more of these obscure and niche type affiliate networks and all these different things. They're still trying to make it and sort of fight for some space in their category. So send them an email and be like, hey guys, just wanted you to know we featured you in our list here of whatever it is. And some of those people will share your content. They'll share it on social media, make mention of it on their website, so you can get some links that way and get a little bit of traffic to your list. So it doesn't just have to live and die with creating the list and hitting publish. It's also a good opportunity to contact some of these people and let them know about it and get other people helping you to share your content. If we go back and take a look at the second example, this one is much smaller. It's just 5 things, I believe, for getting out of debt. So 5 tips for getting out of debt on a limited budget. So it follows the same strategy here, and you see articles like this all the time, or listicles, I guess I should say. But as you go down, it's just 5 tips, and then each one of them has a couple of paragraphs or so that explain each concept. So they give you tips and then give you some practical advice of how you can implement that. So again, it's just a great way to sort of use your content, and in addition to, and I think you're sort of seeing this with all the things that we're talking about today, it's not that you spend all of your time on one or the other, but it's kind of a mix of all of them that fits into what's basically a content template for you, and listicles certainly play a part in that. So pretty easy to produce, but very shareable, very clickable, and can really do a lot of good for your site. So yep.
And Jake, don't you have one doing pretty well on your site? We don't want to give it away, but you made a good listicle, and then you promoted it on Pinterest, and even without any links, it started ranking pretty well, right?
That's very true. Yes. Thank you. So a site that I'm working on for myself did the same thing. And really, in my case, it was a lot of curated content. So I didn't do a whole lot of original writing with the article, but rather just highlighted a bunch of different things that I like. So it was like, 29 of my favorite whatever, and so it has a lot of images in it, and then of course I put the link back to who actually created that item or whatever it was. So just went down and did that, and found it was very shareable, and as Perrin mentioned, shared it on Pinterest. I don't think I've built one single link to it outside of just social media stuff, but it's had hundreds of shares, and by doing that, I was targeting a keyword with it like we talked about earlier, and so it's sitting at spot number 1 for that keyword after just a couple of months, and it's really moved up for some things that are pretty competitive. So certainly there's a lot of different ways you can do it. Don't just think about stuff that you write yourself like Spencer did in that first example there where he put together the list. You can also pull together resources from other places, if it's YouTube, or just getting whatever project ideas, that sort of stuff, and kind of putting it all in one place. There's definitely value in doing that, just making sure that you're always linking back to and crediting who it came from, and you're not stealing someone else's content. So I just want to make sure we're clear on that line. But yeah, absolutely.
Jake. So the other example I'll just point out because it is my website and I know some more details about this particular article on nichepursuits.com. It actually ranks very well. As you can see, it's ranking, it looks like #1 for make money from your website, but it ranks for tons of related phrases, ways to make money from your website, best ways to make money from your website, that sort of thing. And so this is an article that, I put a lot of time and effort into a lot of my articles that I put on my blog. I will say that this is not one of those. This is one where I had this idea, you know what, I should be ranking for this keyword. And so I'm going to put together a quick list. It's not one of my more in-depth or personable, articles. I don't have a lot of personality per se. It's just a big list. And so I've been shocked because this is now probably in the top 5 most trafficked articles on my website now. It's one that for whatever reason ranks really well in Google, and people tend to spend a lot of time on it. And I keep coming back to the fact that it's a listicle, and listicles just work really, really well for SEO purposes and for time on site. People love to read them and come back to them. And so anyways, I just wanted to share a little bit more details that this is, one of the best performing articles on my site overall, and it definitely was not one of the more difficult articles to write. So a lot of advantages to listicles. So having said that, we're going to move into the next type of article here. So social or viral type articles, and most of you are probably very familiar with these types of articles. These are often shorter and perhaps even just curated, so not very original content. Maybe they're just sharing a YouTube video and then they have a couple of paragraphs of why they like this video. But the key here, at least most of the time, is the very shareable titles. So the very interesting sort of cliffhanger type titles that we're all very familiar with from Facebook and other social networks. And so I just want to dive into some examples. And a couple of them do come from Upworthy.com. So I'm just looking over at some questions here. I'll come back to those here in a second. But this one from Upworthy is called Dustin Hoffman Breaks Down Crying, Explaining Something That Every Woman Sadly Already Experienced. And so you can see it's a great title. If you saw this on a social network, you'd be, oh, well, what did he, what did he experience? Or what do women experience? And why was he crying? You would want to come and you'd want to watch this video. And you can see it's not an original video that that Upworthy did. This is just something they found on YouTube. They wrote a very short paragraph, but they wrote a great title that is very clickable. And so I'm not sure if it shows the numbers here. Yeah, it shows this post has been liked 1.4 million times. That's huge. Been shared like crazy. And again, how much of it is original content? Like 4 sentences maybe, but a really great title. But what is, not only is it very shareable, so they're getting tons of page views, and of course they can make money on advertising and building their email list, but it actually ranks really well in Google. So if you type in Dustin Hoffman, this article that we just looked at ranks #5 for the keyword phrase Dustin Hoffman, which gets searched for, I think it was around 100,000 times per month, something like that. So social articles don't only have to perform well on social media, which this article does. They can also perform very well on Google. Now, that's not always going to be the case. For Upworthy, they're very well-established, very authoritative site. So their short, curated articles are going to perform a little bit better than if you or I were to write about Dustin Hoffman. But you certainly can replicate perhaps the great titles and the types of articles that they're producing.
Yeah, if I can jump in here real quick.
Yes.
With the listicle and social articles, there's a good lesson here about building a social audience. And this is something that we don't have a lot of experience in, and that's something that Google continues to deny. But lots of independent bloggers and research firms have found independently that social shares do help increase rankings. We don't know if that's directly because Google is tracking social metrics, or if it's because they indirectly impact other metrics like high click-through rates or high time on site. But social shares do seem to help you rank in some way or another, and one of the best ways to get social shares are to create these social viral articles or listicles. And then maybe something we can pull up before or after you do your two other examples is the co-schedule headline tool, Spencer.
Yeah, we can do that right now. Um, yeah, go ahead and talk about that. I'll figure it out
So I
here.
will, yeah. So this is a really cool tool. I think it's a tad incomplete, but it's the only thing like it out there. It's a tool that you can use to type in a headline idea that you have, and it will give you a score. And basically, you want to get it over 70, and it's probably a really good title. It's based on lots of different factors, and more or less pushes you to create a highly emotional title, and it'll give you a score based on like a whole bunch of different things. So I think it's kind of incomplete, and a couple titles that are, really good um, have low scores and vice versa. But in general, it's a good place to start if you feel like you're not having success coming up with titles, and then that's a really good score for yours.
Yeah. So I just popped in the title for my article on Niche Pursuits, 53 Ways to Make Money from Your Website. I had no idea how well it would do, but apparently it's a really good headline score, which kind of actually just proves out what I'm already seeing. This article performs very well and people like it. But this is a great tool that you guys can, test out different article titles, specifically if you're doing socially shareable type content. And so we probably should keep moving along here. We've got lots more to cover. So I'm going to just very quickly show you these other two socially shareable type articles. Here's one. The title is 16 years ago, a doctor published a study. It was completely made up and it made us all sicker. So just think, if you read that title, you would click through and you'd want to read the rest of the article. This is about the link between autism and vaccines and just how the doctor that said there was a link really made up that study, and it's completely untrue. So anyways, that is another interesting example. And then the final one, another great site that does a ton of social content is movoto.com. They're a real estate based website, so all of their articles are location based typically. So this one is 33 things people from Michigan have to explain to out-of-towners. And I actually knew that this was a really great article, and perhaps now is just as good a time as any. I use the tool buzzsumo.com, and I just popped in, the website. Maybe I'll go ahead and share how I did that so people can get an whoops, typing in the wrong site. Buzzsumo.com, and if you just type in any site that you want to perhaps try and find content that's performing really well, you can type in their site, and then you can see, the number one most shared article on their site with 383,000 Facebook shares is this article I just showed you.
Yeah, this
So
is also a really good way to find stuff to put on your own blog because you can do it by keyword too. So if you have a baseball site, you can type in baseball, and you can find the things that are trending within the past week, past 24 hours. You can find the best of all time, and then you can just go recreate that content on your own site because a lot of these are going to be videos or whatever. So it's a good place to start if you just have no idea what to do.
Yep, absolutely. I agree. So some quick points there. Hopefully you guys caught all of that, but we are going to keep moving on so we can make sure to get everything in here in under an hour. So next one here is linkable assets, and Perrin, take it away.
Yeah, so linkable assets are one of those things that should be keyword focused, but will help you with your other keyword focused articles probably more than the actual keywords you'll be targeting in these. But they're really important. They're more, they fit probably better into a link building course than a keyword research course, but it's still a really important type of content to have on your site, and it's very important for the success of your articles that are targeting long tail keywords, so we wanted to cover them. So what is a linkable asset? These are the articles on your site that you're going to spend the most time on. So they're going to be super in-depth, super high quality content most of the time, or if they're not super in-depth, super high quality, they're going to be something ultra useful like the co-schedule tool. That's an example of a linkable asset. Or have some other high value thing that they're offering to the audience. They're going to be designed specifically to attract links and shares, but mostly links for the types of articles we're going to be talking about below, because we've already talked about the ones that get shares. So they're designed to attract links, and they are your real authority builders. And so when I say authority, I really don't mean, or I mean it in both ways. I mean it in the sense that you are building your actual SEO authority, so your domain authority and page authority, but also in the sense that you're creating a resource that people are wowed by, and you're presenting yourself as an expert. So can we click to the next bullet points? So the business case here is, first, you're building authority like I just talked about. And then also, they allow you to build links to your site and boost the rankings of keywords that might otherwise be hard. So the general model of a linkable asset, or the general model of link building that works nowadays, is to create these amazing pieces of content that are really easy to build links to, and then use those pieces of content to build internal links to your other articles, because it's really tough to build links to an article about the best pocket knife. That's just not a piece of content that wows people. So instead, you use these linkable assets, build links to them, and then boost your other articles with internal links, and that's how it kind of helps you indirectly. They're also amazing networking tools. All of the networking I've ever done for any site I've ever created has been through a linkable asset, and we've done a whole bunch of them. But like through the ego bait method, which I'm going to talk about, or through broken link building or guest posting, what ends up happening is when you reach out to people, you end up talking to them, striking up a conversation. Hey, I really like your blog. I like yours too. And then when you need something else, you can ask them as a friend because you've already talked to them. So they're really, really good networking tools. Excuse me one second. All right. And the other thing to note here is that you almost always have to pair these with some sort of outreach. And this is not a link building course, and it's not an outreach course. There's lots of information about that on nichepursuits.com and other blogs, but it's worth mentioning that for these to really work, you are going to be having to send some emails probably. But the good thing about these, and the real business case to me, is that you don't need many of these to really start making some good money, especially if you're doing fantastic keyword research in the first place. To give you an idea, I'm working on a site that is now 8 months old, and it's getting real close to covering pretty much all of my bills. And I have done maybe 3 linkable assets total for the whole site, and together they've gotten 30 or 40 links, and in addition to maybe 10 other guest posts. That's all my site needed to start making some serious money. So linkable assets are a really high value piece of content you can create. I mean, let's think about what comes from one linkable asset. First, you build authority. Second, you get a whole bunch of links, which is the hardest part of SEO in pretty much anyone's opinion. Third, you might make some friends. And then fourth, you're going to help your other articles rank for all those long tail keywords, which is what actually makes you money. So super good business case in my opinion. And real quickly, I just want to run through a couple of the types of linkable assets you can create. First one is the skyscraper technique, which is something our friend Brian Dean came up with and coined, and the idea is that you look for content that's already been linked to a ton in your market, you create something even better, and you reach out to people who are already linking to that thing, and you just say, hey, can I be included in your page? Sometimes you will, sometimes you won't, but you'll get some links and you'll get some exposure. I haven't had a ton of success with skyscraper technique personally. Lots of people do. Then there's broken link building. There are lots of good tools to find this, like the broken link. BrokenLinkBuilding.com has an automated tool to help you find broken links, which is really good. It's paid, but it's cheap. And the idea is that you find pages that are now dead, you recreate them, and then you link out to, or I'm sorry, you email everybody who is linking to those dead resources and say, hey, you're linking to a page that no longer exists, but here's one you can use instead. I just created it, blah, blah, blah. And these typically have really high conversion rates. Infographics, the one that I am most experienced in, it can also be really effective, where you create a really good infographic about something, and then you reach out to people and you say, hey, I have an infographic, would you like to see it? Your audience might like it. If they say yes, you offer to write them some content to go along with it. These have worked really, really well for me, and they work really well for lots of people. Also, data visualizations fall into this category, and these work really well because they have that wow factor. Lots of these are going to have animations. They're very tough to create. They can't be replicated. No one is going to go create them on their own, and so instead they'll just link to yours. Ultimate guides work really well. Usually these are the heaviest investment of everything here. They take a really long time to create, but they also have the highest reward. The ultimate guides that are truly like how to do something to its fullest extent and give you tons of resources can attract hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of links. The downside, of course, is it takes a long time to write. It's usually expensive, and you honestly have to be an expert. Another thing that we did and have, or these last two things we've also done and we've had some success with them, creating a scholarship. You don't have to write hardly anything. You can just explain how much money you're going to give away, and then you reach out to schools who offer scholarships in that area. And that was one of our biggest successes with the last site we created. I think we got a PA 58 do follow link on a education site, university domain. So really good idea to create a scholarship if you have the money to give away. And then ego bait, which is kind of a more indirect linkable asset where you compile a list of the top bloggers in your niche or some other type of ego bait, and then you reach out and let them know. And then after they say thank you, strike up a conversation, maybe arrange a guest post. And this is something I did on the shaving site that we detailed in a case study on nichepursuits.com. And I think I got 4 or 5 links from 700-word post or something. So as far as like the links you're getting per post, EgoBait's a really good one. So a few examples. Bootstrap Bay, or their free stock photo example, or I'm sorry, the free stock photo post is one of the examples that Brian Dean uses when he talks about the skyscraper method on backlinko.com. And this is just a site, a post that was modeled after other posts in the niche, but he did it better and found ways to better access free stock photos. So it was very easy for him to build links, and I think he ranks really well for the term free stock photos because there are so many links going to this page. And then the other 2 examples.
Yep, and he does rank quite well for that. Yeah, next example here, concerthotels.com. Go ahead.
Yeah, concerthotels.com, 100 Years of Rock. This is a good example of a really crazy data visualization. I think GoToMeeting is going to slow down the animations here, but it's something that animates itself as you scroll down, and it's just a really cool looking graphic, and data visualization includes tons of information, and it's something you just can't create unless you have thousands of dollars. So this one got tons of links, which is really cool, and if you want to check it out, it's concerthotels.com/100 Years of Rock.
Obviously, this type of thing takes a little bit more creativity. It's out-of-the-box type thinking. But if you can come up with a resource like this that's just very different and very cool for your niche, it's a no-brainer for people to link to it. So it can do very, very well.
Yeah, totally. And then I think one of my favorite examples ever for a linkable asset is pointblankseo.com's link building strategies. This is a list of every tactic John Cooper knows for building links ever, and you can also sort it by a whole bunch of different things like the time it takes to build the link, the value of the link, the ease at which you get the link, and that sort of thing. super, super long, but I think of any purposeful link building asset I've ever seen, this one has the most links. It's like something like uh, thousands of links from 500 or 600 domains, and this is something he purposely created as a linkable asset. So those are just a few examples. And you know, again, this would fit better in a link building course, and you can find information on any of these types of things if you go look. But it fits in a keyword research course because one, these linkable asset articles can still target keywords. So you can maybe go after some big ones here because you're going to be building so many links to them. And they also indirectly help you rank for all those longer tail keywords your other articles are targeting just by using internal links. And so here we see the point blank SEO course ranking on the first page of Google at 5 or 6 spot or something, and that has been on the first page, I don't know, for many years or something.
Yeah, probably at least a couple of years. Yeah,
2 or 3 years, yeah.
yeah, you know, these are great things. You can create these huge resources, and of course, you still want to target keywords when you're doing all of this. So you shouldn't just go out and think, well, how can I create a great resource? You really should, as we've always done, start with the keyword in mind, and then think, okay, now what type of content can I create to help me rank better, to help me attract links, and to help me really overall monetize and create the best resource possible on my website. So
Yeah,
go ahead.
I was just gonna say, yeah, and you know, if you're building a linkable asset, you really don't need to build links to any other articles. The way we're building sites now kind of proves that this works. So we're only building links with these linkable assets and letting those carry the rest of our product articles to the tops of the SERPs, and it works.
Yep, absolutely it does. And so I just want to thank all you guys for joining us here. We're done with the primary presentation. We're already at our hour point, but if you're willing to stick around, we're willing to stick around for a few more minutes and just answer any questions that you have. And so if you have any additional questions on keywords and creating content or anything else that we've covered here today, go ahead and type that into the question box, and we'll try to get to those. I know there were a few other questions that came in throughout the presentation, so I'm going to, as you're typing any questions in, I'll try to answer some of these. So Lisa is asking, how much can you copy and paste from somebody else's article, even if you put your link or put their link on your website to be safe? Well, it kind of depends. If you're quoting somebody, when I write a big article post, I often will quote people, and I might, you know, quote 2, 3, or 4 paragraphs. And of course, I mention who said this. It's a direct quote, and I put a link to the original resource, and that's just fine. But if all you have is a short, you know, if you're trying to create some viral article and all you have is only copied content, that's not a good idea. So maybe it's a percentage of the overall article length, how much of that can be copied. It needs to be pretty minimal. So there's not an exact answer there. It just kind of depends, I guess. But you certainly should, if you're copying content, always link to the resource and let people know that, you know, this is a quote, or, you know, this content originated somewhere else. Okay, and then Jay is asking, what's the best way to build SEO on an all video niche website? And Jake or Perrin, feel free to jump in here. My first thought is, well, I guess it depends on the type of video website it is, but like we showed in the Dustin Hoffman example there, that, you know, you should be writing a paragraph or two of original content before or after the video so you can get some of that SEO value there, and then of course embed your video. So I don't know if that's exactly what you're doing there. I don't know, Jake or Perrin, do you have any other thoughts on that?
Yeah, I totally agree.
Yeah, I
I was
mean,
going to say the same thing pretty much is, you know, obviously writing a good title and all that, and we've done some of that. where you sort of embed and react. Yeah, and so put the video in there, and then give your thoughts, either summarizing it or giving your opinion on it or whatever. But yeah, I would avoid just embedding the video. I would at least surround that with a little bit more information.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think I would add on that, even if your site's based around videos, keyword research doesn't change. You still have to do keyword research the same way. Your pages still need some sort of content, and you still need to target keywords using good practices for on-page SEO. So if there's a video on the page, it really doesn't change much. You still have to find keywords and target them.
Yep, absolutely. I'm getting a question here from Charles. He says, is it better to write content as a blog post that links to your site or as a page on your site? I'm not sure if I fully understand the question, because a blog post is on your site as well. So both a blog post and a page are on your site. So I'm not sure I'm fully understanding the question, but you can do it either way. You can, if you're using WordPress, you can either create a post or a page. There's perhaps benefits to each. At the end of the day, it really doesn't matter that much. I use blog posts for my blog. I use pages on other sites. Both of them are going to be content. Both of them can be ranked in Google. I don't know that it matters a whole lot there. Perrin, any thoughts there?
Yeah, so I mean, as far as SEO value goes, it doesn't matter at all. I've had sites that were built only with pages that and they rank super well, and I have sites that are all blog posts and they rank super well. The pros mostly are going to be the organization on the back end. Pages get really unwieldy if you have hundreds of them, whereas blog posts are much easier because you have categories and tags and that sort of thing. That said, for our current projects, a lot of our linkable assets are built on pages because they look more like landing pages. There's no sidebar, they're a little bit wider, they have bigger featured images and that sort of thing. But yeah, in the end, for SEO value, they can both rank.
Yep, absolutely. And I've had a couple of people ask me, I think they're asking about a browser plugin that I'm using. They're wanting to know about the link, if I can send them a link to the valuation app that I'm using on the top of my page. Boy, it's been there so long, I haven't even noticed. I'm not sure if they're talking, oh, I see. They're talking about this plugin. Yeah, I don't remember what it's called. Maybe this isn't worth spending time, but yeah, I don't remember what it's called at the moment, so sorry. It's let's see if I can find it real quick. It is the SEO status PageRank Alexa toolbar. So there you go. The SEO status PageRank. It's a Mozilla Firefox add-on. So not a big deal. There's lots of other ones that people can use to do the same thing. So let's see what else we got. Charles has another question here. What percentage roughly of similar content does Google class as duplicate content? I don't have an exact percentage that if your article is 50% original and 50% copied, that Google's not going to count any of your article as original. I don't think there's an exact answer there. And in fact, news websites are very well known for what's the phrase I'm looking for? Not curating, but they use news feeds.
Syndicating.
Syndicating, yes, thank you. For syndicating content, so that thousands of news websites will all publish the exact same content. So it's not so much about duplicate content on other websites. So if 10 websites all have the same content, that's not so much the duplicate content that Google cares about. It's more about duplicate content on your own website. So if you publish 5 articles that are all exactly the same, Google's going to know something's wrong there, and that's duplicate content. They're not going to rank you. So overall,
it's also just internet etiquette.
Go ahead.
If you are. I was going to say, it's also just internet etiquette if you also, if you do publish content on that's already published somewhere else to put a rel canonical tag so that that page gets credit, because you're not going to rank for it anyway.
Yep. Exactly. So overall, I think we've answered most of the questions. Hopefully you guys have enjoyed this presentation. I want to thank you once again for taking time out of your day so you can listen to us chat about keyword research and creating content. Hopefully you found some value here. As we mentioned, if you missed some of the presentation, this will be recorded and you can log into the members area. But thanks so much again for joining Longtail University and joining us here today for this live webinar. Thanks a lot, guys. We'll see ya.